Special time, everybody. Welcome in here on a Wednesday. Traded Black podcast here at 5 p.m. Appreciate everybody for logging on here at a special time here today. Why? Well, Charlie Bachtell from Cresco Labs is about to join us. Just got back from Washington. He was there for the presidential inauguration. Curious to find out what events he attended and some of the people he ran into and whether or not the topic of cannabis was brought up. We want to get a better understanding of what this administration really views cannabis, if it's a topic of conversation, maybe not right now, but into the future. And if so, like we say, could we get some sort of change when it comes to banking reform and rescheduling, which is why we're here almost every single day to learn more. So with that, let's welcome in AV here on a Wednesday. I think for the longest time, we used to use the trend term imminent. I think the new word now is hopium.
I don't like either of those terms, to be completely honest.
Neither.
I think opium is a little condescending and juvenile, and imminence we kind of use like yikes. Imminence, just imminence, a nice little light in the mood word to use around here. Hopium, I can't stand.
No, I don't like it either. But you know what? It's look, we need attention. We need people to be talking about this, to be educated on this, and that's where I want to begin here right now. Is Fox News ran an op-ed with Mike Tyson and Weldon Angelos outlining Biden's failures and Trump's potential wins towards the cannabis industry. I didn't get a chance to see a lot of this right now. Just got out of a 2-hour webinar with another company. But you just brought this up 5 minutes before we went live. Tell me about it. What did you see? What did you hear? Why is this a good thing?
Yes, if you wanted to get in Trump's ear or have something seen by Trump, you'd run it on Fox News. I mean, it was a great outlet to run the op-ed from Tyson and Weldon Angelos. It was on Biden's shortcomings and the Democratic shortcomings as it relates to the process of cannabis reform and what Trump can potentially do to win and how they hope that his administration is going to right the wrongs that have happened. I hate to use that word hope. It was used in some tweets that I saw. It was also used in the title. I don't know if I would really use that right word, as hope is not, there's nothing strong about hope, to be completely honest. We need action. We're past the point of hoping from things. But again, this is a major MAGA leaning outlet that's running cannabis content the week after Donald Trump takes office. I don't know if they're doing some sort of social listening experiment, if they're running this stuff to see how good it does, if they're running this to put it in front of the right people's faces. But I mean, you had a lot of content going on through this stuff, and I mean, it's a big maybe with what's going to happen. I mean, especially with what we've seen with the new appointed acting DEA head as it relates to cannabis, which I'm sure we might see some statement from in the coming weeks.
Donald Trump likes his fights. He loved those 15-round boxing fights, and he's a big fan of Mike Tyson. I don't think Mike Tyson's going to garner attention from Joe Biden, but he would with obviously Donald Trump. But again, this is pure speculation. Good to see it obviously getting attention. I think it's telling to see that a network like Fox is talking about this within the first week that he's been inaugurated. But I don't want to look and read too much into this.
Especially when you take into account that Fox News was used as a megaphone and a weapon against Amendment 3. Leading up to the election. It was the main outlet that Ron DeSantis was going on. He was going on, he was going on all the primetime slots on Fox News and Laura Ingraham, and basically making the case against Amendment 3, don't turn Florida into California. And that's where the war was pretty much waged as far as mass media goes. So it's good to see something in a positive light and that they are running it site-wide.
What's this AV? Whatever is Luke from Sam saying on X that Pam Bondi is on their side? What?
So Luke just tweeted something with a picture of Pam Bondi that said no on pot. If I had to guess, that was probably from 2016 in Florida, when she was actively campaigning against it at the leisure of the governor, following what the head of the state was mandating. And I mean, that's one thing that we have heard, that she is a soldier that falls in line and pushes the agenda of her boss. Can't say that it means that she's going to do something positive, but I guess that we have seen that she does fall in line when told, given marching orders.
Yeah. Speaking of agenda, let's find out what the agenda was on the table this past weekend in Washington. A lot of events going on for this inauguration for the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump, sworn in on Monday, January the 20th. Who is there? our next guest, CEO of Cresco Labs, Charlie Bachtell. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday, and you staying warm? I can't believe how cold it was in Washington over the past weekend.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me. It was cold, no doubt about it. I'll tell you, it's colder in Chicago though.
Yeah, it's not real toasty right now in the northern part of the U.S. But want to get in. The reason why I wanted to have you on, a lot of people are like anticipating, like they saw a lot of stuff on Twitter over the last couple of days. I know there was a number of events that you attended, and speculation starts happening. Who did Charlie meet with? Who did he speak with? Was cannabis brought up? Did any of that stuff come to fruition? Like, how would you best describe your last 3-4 days? And I don't want people to think that you were there to meet with certain people in certain meetings in place. It was just you there to be in attendance for the inauguration. But while you were there, was the topic of cannabis brought up?
So I would say the main agenda for participating in the official inaugural events, it's like Anthony said, like, we need action. As a subject matter, we need action. And I think as we come into 2025, what you're going to see from the leading stakeholders in this space is action that furthers the discussion, furthers the availability of information, and furthers the presence of our subject matter in front of the decision makers that are part of the new administration and new Congress. And so there was an announcement last week too about the bringing together of the NCR and USCC associations. Yeah. It's action, right? It's coordination. It is aligning resources. It is refining the singularity and the focus of the messaging that's going to be coming from our industry to the new administration and Congress in the year. I would say the presence at the inaugural events was in furtherance of that. It's showing them that we're a real industry and that we're going to act like real industries, mature industries act. And you could see there was good company in the businesses, the industries, and the individuals that made sure that they were at the inaugural events over the last week. So we were a part of it.
Yeah, I think it's been clearly evident since Trump took office that he is doing things differently. Just look at his pardons, look at some of the executive orders. You mentioned messaging. In terms of messaging, we obviously know how we were portraying the messaging on behalf of the industry during the Biden administration, even in the Trump administration prior. What is the message moving forward to the executive branch and the lawmakers on behalf of the industry?
Fortunately, it's going to be rooted in a common sense approach to cannabis legislation and regulation going forward, which is what is aligned with his statements on the issue. And fortunately for us, it is a place that cannabis has been begging to get into for decades and longer, right? If you take a common sense view on cannabis, you will come up with reforms that are so far from where we're at now, whether that's full legalization or otherwise. There are incremental steps into doing this appropriately, whether you like cannabis or you are adamantly against cannabis. A common sense view of where it currently sits would show you that we are not sitting in the right spot. Under no circumstances should this be a Schedule I substance. 40 out of 50 states in this country have passed laws based on their assessment of the fact that this does provide medicinal value. This should not be a Schedule I substance. The idea that even if you only like cannabis, regulated cannabis, for the fact that you might tolerate regulated cannabis more than cartel-led cannabis, you could see that you shouldn't starve the regulated cannabis from access to resources that every regular industry has access to, right? So there's such an opportunity for us as an industry that lies super comfortably in this era of common sense. That I think that's the messaging that you'll see developed and sort of carried out by the industry. I would also say a more comprehensive, unified approach to cannabis. Some of the meetings that we did have while we were in town over the last 5 days, met with a friend of the shows as well, with Don Murphy, was at an event with him where this sort of in Weldon that you brought up earlier, a lot of work and conversations over the past couple of months with Weldon and his Mission Green project on just the coordination. While there might be different organizations and associations that are advocating on behalf of cannabis and that are on the Hill, ensuring that we're all reading from the same song sheet where we do have commonality, which by the way is in so many more areas than where we feel differently, making sure that we're coordinated and that we're collaborating, again, aligning resources. Resources go so much further when you're all rowing in the same direction.
Of course.
You're going to just see more of that type of action from the stakeholders as we go forward.
Let me ask you, like, does the messaging have to change all that much with the new administration, or it stays consistent and you guys just you start working together more? Is that what I'm hearing and understanding?
Yeah, there's definitely consistency in the message. The messaging for cannabis hasn't needed to change, at least since regulated cannabis really developed in the late teens. When you do have state laws that put structure around this, and when they do have regulators that oversee this, and you have third-party testing, and you have child-resistant packaging, and you have, the messaging doesn't need to change much. But it is nuanced in sort of how it's delivered, and in the focus of not only the responsible approach to regulated cannabis that's in place, but really leaning into also the sort of the America First narrative that resonates with this administration when it comes to access to capital markets. Like I mentioned it last time I was on this show, like I can't think of a scenario that is more right up the alley of this administration than foreign cannabis companies having access to the capital markets, and the companies that employ 500,000 people across this country and pay taxes not.
In terms of I guess similarities between the new cabinet members, the new agency heads, we're seeing a lot of language around harm reduction, opioid reduction, closing the border down, going after cartels. Are they aware, or is part of the messaging to educate them that the data does show that when cannabis is legalized from an adult use perspective, you do see a contraction in the black market, you do see an uptick in harm reduction, and you are seeing a positive correlation as it relates to opioids in these markets? Because to me, that does seem like a point that would resonate greatly with the new human capital that's being installed.
Again, I think that's a great example of a narrative that's been part of the communication strategy and the data points for years. But are we going to make sure that message gets across and is heard going forward? Yeah. Maybe more so than it has been historically. Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's one of those perfect. Public health and public safety is the two main rationales for passing of these state laws. Yeah, since the teen, like this is why these state laws get passed. And it also resonates with the audience that is not a fan of cannabis to begin with. Like I said, you could either have regulated, compliance-focused control cannabis that is resourced so it can function, or you could have cartel-led access to cannabis. Cannabis doesn't go away if you don't like cannabis. It's present.
The louder this conversation gets, it makes me believe that the number one thing that we have is the backing of data, and I think. A lot of people that are against the growth of the industry, and the louder that they get, there's something there. If we're not talking about it, then we're in bad shape. We're in a bad situation. But the topic is being brought up time and time again. Do you feel, and I don't want to speculate, I don't want to provide hope where a lot of people are leaning towards this industry, but how differently do you feel about this industry under this Trump administration versus the one that we just had?
This is where I think I mentioned it last time I was on, just again about the approach from this individual and also his administration that we've seen is that he has a history of say-do from the perspective. If he puts something out there, he likes to get it done. And in the way that we're maybe inelegantly discussing it internally, but that's BS sort of radar that he has is really strong, and he tends to lean into things that just seem like absolute BS. And I would say the position that cannabis has been in the way that we've been treated as we've tried to get these incremental, very responsible, very common sense reforms done, is that's the kind of scenario where he's going to look at it and goes, that makes no sense. Of course, let's push forward with rescheduling. Let's push forward with incremental reform that allows for this industry, again, generate, what was it, $30+ billion in revenue last year? Without being able to accept credit cards and have to accept cash. Like it just, I'm optimistic in this administration's desire to cut through BS and come up with common sense approaches to situations like we've been dealing with cannabis. I think our subject matter is well suited for the way that it appears that he wants to govern and has historically.
Yeah. I mean, I've always taken a tact of, Trump is a narcissist at the end of the day. And I think that there's nothing more than what he wants for people to look back, and you'll be able to look at his accomplishments. And legalizing cannabis, I think, is something that every Canadian is always going to remember, something positive that Trudeau did for the country. And if Trump is to do that, steal it from the Democrats and just ink it to where it's Donald Trump did X, I do think there's a certain level of motivation there for him to take this seriously, if educated and motivated to do the right thing.
David Culver was saying that last week, that 4 years ago there was so much excitement about the Biden administration stepping in. We're actually going to get proper reform. Here we are 4 years later, and we don't need to get into that. But because of that, because the industry has matured and the story has developed, that he believes this is definitely an issue very much that the Republicans want to steal. Do you believe that?
Yeah, again, because I think we can, and it's not, honestly, it's not us. We help amplify the story of cannabis and the voice of cannabis itself. Cannabis has such a wonderful opportunity to tell its story that a common sense review of it would lead to reform that we have yet to been able to achieve.
Okay.
So if we put cannabis in the position to be heard by an audience that wants to take a common sense approach to it, it should have a successful outcome.
Is there any concerns? We talk about what could be, but is there any concerns that you want to be cautious of with this new administration when entering in with the right messaging?
Look, I think there's always concerns. We've all been living it, and again, your audience is an audience that has a lot of experience in this space. We've been frustrated by the inability for administrations and legislators to be able to reach a common sense approach to this, and at the same time, we've developed a very robust industry in this country that employs a lot of people and produces a lot of tax revenue and does a lot of good. So I think there's always a healthy amount of concern that should be brought to the efforts here to make sure that we are putting in all of the effort in designing and shaping and delivering the message in a way that it gets heard, because we've been frustrated for years that we haven't been able to achieve the progress that cannabis clearly deserves to achieve.
Yeah.
I know we're talking a lot about cannabis on the federal level, but we still have a lot to do on the state level in 2025. Is there anything you can share about PA? How you're feeling about it, expectations? Should we be seeing it in Shapiro's tax budget come February? And are we really getting any traction there to where that should materialize in 2025 at some point?
Yeah, I again, optimistic. I do think you will hear about it in the budget discussions and statements. And I do think you will see an increased level of engagement from not only both sides of the aisle, but by the executive branch, by the governor himself, to get that done. And I don't mean to make light of this at all, but I think it is real that with Ohio successfully launching an adult use program here over the last year, that's a catalyst. That's an incentive for the good people of Pennsylvania. They are at this point surrounded, and there is clear data that shows their residence base travels across state lines to very accessible cities in states that have adult use programs and participates in those states' programs. And I don't think that sits well with many government bodies. So.
Wouldn't sit well with me. It wouldn't sit well with me either, knowing that my citizens are going across the border and those states are then utilizing the tax revenue that's generated by the industry that we can easily implement at the state level if we wanted to.
Especially when they have the infrastructure already. It's not from scratch. There's a robust infrastructure in Pennsylvania. There's so many public goods that come from the regulating and taxing of adult use access. And now they've got plenty of roadmaps and examples that they can utilize to sort of take the best from the states around them and make a very, very viable program.
What's your thoughts? Are we looking at, he's an acting administrator for the DEA right now, Derek Maltz. I didn't get the latest here this afternoon, but has there been any late breaking news? Like, has he been officially appointed the head of the DEA? But if he is, what's your thoughts on him? And do you believe that, I think he's actually said, if the data shows, the benefits of rescheduling cannabis, then so be it, in so many words. But what's your thoughts? Because obviously a lot of the rumors that we see and hear based on Trump's cabinet, that we believe that many people will be in line with his views. But can you share it if you know much about him? And if so, like, what's your take if he is indeed appointed as head of the DEA?
I have not seen any news this afternoon on whether that's changed from sort of the acting position to a final decision. Look, I believe so wholeheartedly in this story that cannabis gets to tell for itself. Like I said earlier, a common sense evaluation of this should provide for progress from where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've just read the kind of the high level statements that Maltz has made previously. I have to trust that the professionalism and his ability to review the information that exists is going to be there if the president is going to appoint him to that position. And I like the story that cannabis gets to tell.
Yeah. Well, the encouraging thing is we keep hearing this over and over, is how much a lot of the companies, especially even the top MSOs, are working very closely with each other. What's changed? Like, why did, I don't want to say why to get to this point, but if someone were to ask, why was this not in place 2, 3, 4 years ago, or was it? But it sounds to me that it's kind of like you guys have gone to the next level, which is an encouraging thing. So you maybe want to elaborate off that?
I think there's a lot of reasons, and I think it is easy to, and I wouldn't, maybe it's Monday morning quarterbacking it, but sure, yeah, we should have gotten here faster. The important thing is we're here now, right? Yeah. And I think maybe it has been. Look, it takes. I will tell you from my personal engagement and involvement in this over the past couple of years, there's a learning curve here to how to do it. And why to do it. And so we're all learning, we're all getting better. I think I'm excited about where we're all at today in the collaborative, cooperative approach to this. I think we're doing the things that we need to do to be a real industry that gets looked at as a real industry. And once the sort of the ancillary noise of different points of view and different voices, once that quiets, then people can focus on those data points that we've been talking about and see how obvious this is for some incremental reform that will make significant changes to the way that this industry is treated in the country.
Yeah. What was the event like? Was it the experience being there? What was the atmosphere like?
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement. And like I said, just if you look at sort of who the organizations were and the industries were that participated and that contributed and that made themselves present for this inauguration, it's different than it ever has been. Even the amounts that they contributed, right? If you look back at some of the largest organizations in the world and how much they contributed to this same set of events 4 years ago and 8 years ago compared to what they did today, I think there's a clear message out there that is engage with this administration, be present, make sure that you're doing what you need to do in order for the voice of your industry to be heard. And that's the relationship that you want to have with the new administration and the new Congress. So I'm happy that cannabis has put itself in a position to be there too.
Can't take anything for granted right now, but that's the great thing that I'm hearing more and more. So take it as you will, viewers, on what we're hearing and from thought leaders like yourselves, Charlie. But look, always great to catch up with you and to get some feedback on what you just experienced, especially when a new president is sworn in. But hopefully onwards and upwards. But I think the biggest thing I get away from take away from today's interview is just let's have an approach that's common sense. Because if we've got all the information that backs everything up that we're saying, as you said, this is long overdue, and hopefully we get some common sense in place with this new administration.
Common sense. That's
Common
the main
sense,
theme.
I think. All right, sir. Stay warm in Chicago. And I don't know how much of a football fan you are, but I'm a Lions fan. We lost a tough one to Washington last week, and then we lost our offensive coordinator to your Bears. So it's been a tough week for Detroit fans.
Thank you for sending them our way.
My loss is your gain. Okay, let's keep in touch, okay?
Will do.
Thanks, Charlie.
Charlie.
Talk soon.
I like how he keeps it simple, but common sense. And I did like the question that I asked is like, does the messaging change all that much? And no, it just needs to be more awareness. And with that, you're seeing more dollars being raised towards these lobbying groups. And I know one could ask and wonder, like, why wasn't this being done before? But I think we could sit here and stomp our feet and all this stuff. But the reality is we are in this situation. Now let's find the solution to move ahead, right?
Yeah, I think common sense will prevail. But I also think it is a function of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump has to want to get this done, if Donald Trump does not want to get this done, this isn't going to be an administrative thing that happens to just fall in line. It's not going to be a legislative thing that just happens to fall in line. Donald Trump has to want to actually get this done. Look at the pardons that he's done. He went straight against everybody. Even their comments in their confirmation hearings, he went against exactly what he said before he took office. He's going to do what he wants to do. He pardoned Ross Ulbricht yesterday, who was the founder of Silk Road. Very controversial, but he said he was going to do it, and he did it. I'm shocked that he did it, to be completely honest. But he's going to do what he wants. So we need to get to him. We need to tug on his heartstrings, play on his ego, do whatever we got to do to where this can be one of his accomplishments and get him to want to get this done.
He's a guy that has a good network, right? And he likes to be around people that can help amplify his name and brand. And you can't look past Raging Gun. Trump. I think you're right. Reality equals solution equals move ahead. If Joe Rogan and Dana White want this done, then they will get it done. I wouldn't go that far, but I do think that having a relationship with a Joe Rogan is interesting. So Elon Musk is interesting. Like, there's a lot of these things that are interesting, but again, we don't know.
Yeah, and I said that on our 8:30 call this morning. We need another Sanjay Gupta moment. If those that remember that have actually been here for that long and have been here since the beginning, relatively, the Sanjay Gupta moment was the inflection point where people started taking cannabis very seriously. Yeah. That was when Charlotte's Web came out. That was when the first medicinal application of cannabis was really going mainstream. And Sanjay Gupta took it by the horns, and it was all over CNN. They had a primetime evening special. And that is when cannabis really went mainstream. We need that. I hate saying this, but we need history to repeat itself. Someone needs to go on Joe Rogan. Fox News needs to either come to terms that cannabis is mainstream. Cannabis is helping a lot of their constituency that's watching their network. And we need to have that moment, not necessarily coming from the right, but that national exposure that brings cannabis full circle again, to reiterate and really bring that wave in. But we got a lot of work to do. Yeah, there is a lot of work to do. I think some people might conflate my positive attitude towards Trump getting something done by it being very laissez-faire to a certain degree. We got a lot of work to do. There's going to be a lot of work that needs to go into what happens moving forward, and the foot can't be taken off of the gas at any given moment.
Tom Angel, completely agree with you. AV is right there, is work ahead. So far, Trump hasn't shown he really cares about this beyond a couple social media posts. If he wants it will likely get done, but that remains a big if for now. Well said.
That's reality. I
completely agree with all that.
That is 100% reality. We got 2 social media posts. That's it. That is our smoking gun for Trump supporting cannabis reform. That is reality. But rescheduling is going on right now. Safe banking is sitting there, and it's godforsaken form that it might have died in Chuck Schumer's drawer, like we had said the other day.
Yeah.
But cannabis isn't going anywhere. It polls at a very, very high percentage. It polled at 56% in the state of Florida. That's going to come up in 2026. with
Yeah,
the
and
gubernatorial races taking off. It's everywhere now.
Yeah,
Red
and-
states, blue states, mainstream. Cannabis is here, and it's not leaving.
yeah, in common sense, I know a lot of people will say, well, Trump had 4 years. Well, look, Donald Trump of 2016 compared to where we are today is, especially towards this topic, it's matured, the industry's developed, job creation has grown. All this stuff comes into play. And I think to give a comparison of where his stance was 8-9 years ago to where it is now is laughable. We don't know, but I think not necessarily Donald Trump, but I think the industry as a whole. And there's no better example than obviously Joe Biden addressing it during the State of the Union address. And there's no way that would have gotten any kind of attention 8 years ago.
So Ed, I mean, I think saying Susie Wiles being affiliated with the administration is a decent talking point. It's an interesting data point.
Yes.
But could you tell me the chief of staff from any prior administrations and what they have accomplished when in office? Because I can't. However, she has a positive voice. She's in the administration, and that's somebody that can have Trump's ear. But until something transpires, I'm going to assume that she hasn't given him the gospel as it relates to cannabis. Just being real.
I agree with you. Can't put the genie back.
You know who would tell him? You know who would tell him is Barron. Barron has educated him on crypto.
What'd you
Barron
think
is
of him?
educated. He looks like Gru from the Minions movies, if I'm being honest. And there's nothing more to say. I mean, he's a 19-year-old kid that's a freshman in college.
What do you think he said to Biden? What do you think he said to Joe Biden? What do you?
No idea. Hope it wasn't disrespectful. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, everybody's got their opinions, but I mean, Joe Biden is still the president of the United States at the end of the day. He's a 19-year-old kid that's only there because of his father. Time and place.
I think he was polite. He strikes
I think
me
he was too.
I do too. I think Melania, she strikes me as structured mom and make sure because she's been around a lot since he's grown up.
I think he's a good kid, but I think he also has a lot more influence on Donald than people think. I bet you Barron was the one that said, go on Joe Rogan, go engage with Theo Vaughn, go across all these outlets, come into crypto, lay off the gas with the SEC with what needs to go on. Here's crypto regulation. Granted, Trump's done some things in the last couple of days that are absolutely bonehead moves as far as this crazy meme coin that he's launched, as well as his own DeFi platform. He didn't need to go that far into it.
I know.
But I do think Trump is educated on current events and on popular culture via Barron. That's probably very, very factually accurate.
Donald Trump is a status guy. If you have a son who's 6'8" and has his presence, his appearance, that's a proud father. You could tell when he actually gave him a shout out. I don't think he's really, very rarely does he talk about Don Jr. and Eric. He does at times, but
he gave out a shout out. You know who he gave out a shout out as well at the inauguration? Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds, we spoke about on this platform before. Byron Donalds might be running for the governor of Florida in 2026. Byron Donalds was against Amendment 3, and if memory serves me right, he was also against safe banking. However, he had 2 cannabis offenses at the age of 17 or 18 in the state of Florida for distribution as well as possession, and those charges got dropped. Those charges didn't get dropped. That would have fundamentally altered the life of that gentleman greatly, and I don't think he's sitting on stage behind Donald Trump at the inauguration. So if he does run for the governor's seat in 2026, or he does get involved more with the Republican Party, which it looks like he's going to, I really hope that he changes his tune on cannabis and gets some common sense into the fold, because he's not going to be able to run for governor in the state of Florida in 2026 and oppose adult use cannabis as part of his platform.
So many things that he alludes to when he's public speaking. There's like an agenda, a long-term agenda, but the plant has been the seed has been planted more or less with Byron Donalds. And I got to tell you, when I interviewed him back in September, Guap, you remember, what a super nice guy, very approachable.
Oh, he's great. Outside of cannabis, he's great. He's got a great handle on politics. He's not super far right. He comes more center. He's great. He's great politically. Yeah. He hasn't come around on cannabis yet. Hopefully he does.
Guap, I was actually thinking about this when I was saying about the whole 2016 and how people are compared, Donald Trump's stance on cannabis compared to what it is today. But how many people voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and how many people actually changed their stance on that within 4 years dramatically? And you saw obviously what happened in the last 4 years, and people are, not happy with what the administration did. And it obviously reflected on November 5th. And, whether you agree or disagree with whatever political party you support, there was a lot of people that did support Joe Biden at one time that switched to Donald Trump. So with that, I think it's even outside of that. I just think the industry as a whole, when you think of how many companies, remember the time that we were talking about, one day these cannabis companies are going to produce $100 million in revenue in 1 year. Now we're over $1 billion, and it just continues to get bigger. There's more job creation, and we start to accept it into everyday life, society, and normalize the overall industry. It's still a long ways to go, but it's definitely grown substantially. Not only in 4 years, but 8 years, even more. But here we are. All right. I'm off Friday. You're going solo. So best of luck to you. Anything else you want to add? Was there anything else that we should touch on here today?
It was a slow day. There was not a lot of press releases. I mean, the only press release materially, I think, in the last 24 hours was something to do with I know Jesse Redmond joined Leaf Brands.
Yeah,
so
reached out to
congratulations.
Jesse. Best of luck, Jesse.
Congratulations, Jesse. And then there was a couple other press releases, but nothing really that big. It's been quiet.
Yeah.
We got earnings coming up, I think, in the next month. GTI announced, I think they're announcing February 24th, if I'm not mistaken, their earnings.
Is it? Deborah Norenberg, I like this one comment. Common sense in the interest of public safety is hard to deny. Common sense in the interest of business, personal agendas, opinions is easy to see through. I understand that. I really do.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah. Arun Raj, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you guys for positive energy and efforts. Always appreciate that. Jamie Kaiser writes, still holding Cresco.
Oh, you know what got granted today?
What?
FDA approval for Spravato from Johnson & Johnson as it relates to depression. So it really does pay to have the long game and really have those relationships
Wow.
in the government. That's a big step for Spravato and ketamine as a whole.
InMed Pharmaceuticals as well had an interesting PR. Thanks, Squat, for highlighting that. What was how'd that stock move today? Do you know?
Johnson & Johnson, I don't follow. It's not on my screen. I think it was up very mildly today.
Just to let everybody know, beginning next month, we're actually going to have a weekly segment. Do not fall asleep on the psychedelic space for sure, because we've heard obviously RFK in the fall talk about his support for further research. So that'd be interesting to see how that transpires.
That's big, actually. RFK finally got his confirmation hearing set for the 29th. That's going to be a fun one to watch. That's going to be a real fun one to watch.
David Benz, thanks for the update.
And it was interesting because all of the talk yesterday on Trump's Project Stargate, which is a $500 billion with a B private-public partnership with Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI. I found it weird that they were leading with medical research and cancer research and diagnostics and vaccines as it relates to AI. And one of the main reasons why they were building and going after this project, this is to create AGI. I don't really buy the whole diagnostic angle, but we'll see.
I love the comment that Trump made about how he made a couple billion off of his meme coin, and he was asked that, or somebody mentioned that to him.
The guy's behind me.
Yeah. That's peanuts. Too funny, man.
It was a great answer. I was actually watching that. I watched that interview and I was in real time, and then I heard the answer. I was like, "You sly son of a bitch!"
It didn't even.
I was like, "Oh, no!" Immediately, he's like, "Well, that's peanuts compared to these guys behind me."
Maybe his old age, he's toned down a little bit and not as aggressive, I would say, from his first run. But look, we're only a couple days in. And let's see how it goes. But listen, I appreciate everybody for checking in. Stay up to date on our daily Baked In newsletter. Again, I always say this. Make sure to scan that QR code and subscribe. A lot of helpful information and some analysis on some of the new cabinet members. What are our takeaways? We'll find out by subscribing to our Baked In newsletter. We'll outline that. As well, as I always say, make sure to like this video and share this video with your network and subscribe to our channel. Mr. Varel, happy Wednesday. We'll see you. Actually, I'm off Friday, and I'll see you back here on Monday. But best of luck. I'm sure you'll do fine. And curious to see who you'll have on. And yeah, let's enjoy the rest of our day. Take care.
That's it. Appreciate it.
Now, that was a good one. What'd you guys all think? Did you like what we had to say here today? Do you agree, disagree with what we're saying? Love to get your feedback. As usual, leave comments below. Trade to Black is growing, and we wouldn't have done it without you. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check us out on Apple and Spotify for the audio version. And as usual, leave lots of comments. We, as I said, love to hear back from you. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.